Welcome to a new video. Something a little bit different today. Hopefully, something shorter and fun while I still work on a couple of videos about China that I'm going to put out there. But I was speaking to a colleague actually, and I was moaning about the debt-based monetary system, and they turned around and they said, "Yeah, but it's the only system that works. What else is there that we could use?" And I was quite amazed by that. But I guess it makes sense seeing as every country pretty much uses this debt-based monetary system now. But I thought I'd do this video, we'd do a tier list of the different monetary systems. We'll speak about pros and cons. Hopefully it will be a little bit of fun, but also enlighten people as to what other systems there could be. So yeah, I guess we will start with debt-based monetary system, not the most exciting one, but it's pretty much the system that every country uses. Money is essentially debt. The banks don't create money, they create debt. So money is created every time you go out and you get a mortgage or you get a loan or something like that. And the value which is being put up against that debt is whatever the collateral, right? So it's the house, it's the car. So it's quite a cheeky system because they're profiting and giving out debt based on collateral and stuff that you own. It gives a lot of power to these bankers, central banks, the bond market, which is not where you want power. Hopefully, people have learned that by now. And it also just means that the whole system needs debt to run. If there's a lack of loans being given out, a lack of debt, then it leads to economic problems. Think of like the Great Depression. Can cause bank runs where everyone goes and asks for their money at the same time. The biggest problem I think though is that it creates this ever accelerating wheel. So like for example, if you think about the first $10 which is created as a loan, that first $10 you're gonna need $11 to pay it back, and then that means you'll need to create an extra dollar to pay it back, which is also going to mean that you're going to need to create more and more and more money. So the debt can never be paid off, and at an accelerating rate as there's more and more debt, there also needs to be more and more debt to pay that debt off. So you end up getting this paradox, and it works fine when we're in a world where everything's growing, populations are growing, economies are growing. But the reality is we live in a finite world, so it ends up causing issues. There are ways of getting around it. People don't realize that these systems have been used in the past, but was usually accompanied with stuff like a debt jubilee. So like in Mesopotamia, every 50 years, all the debts would be like wiped clean and they'd start again, right? There is some other kind of fuckery that you can do, like negative interest rates, I guess, and quantitative tightening, and like there are weird ways to make it work, but the whole system is built on a paradox. So yeah, collapses during degrowth, not good. Transfers wealth from taxpayers to debt owners as well, because the government is constantly paying off this money debt that they owe. And that's coming from the taxpayers, who are usually the working class, because that's who pay taxes. And then that money is going to debt owners and banks. So it's funneling money in the wrong way. And it's haram as well. If God doesn't like it, there's a reason why it's not that good. But all jokes aside, there's a reason why pretty much every single religion bans debt. So with that all said and done, I'm still going to put it in B because it can work, and it has worked. Like, okay, it eventually collapses, but it's tried and tested, right? Next we'll go to CBDC slash like a basically the same system. I'm calling it CBDC, central bank digital currency, but it's like CBDC slash modern monetary theory. I'm thinking of the same system we have now, but just taking away the debt aspect. So just having it so that the government can create money, and then they have to tighten that money using stuff like taxing, and balancing out or deleting that money. People say this doesn't work, it leads to hyperinflation. And I think that while that is the case, all money is eventually going to lead to inflation. The value and the price of everything will eventually uh, merge or what's it called? Come to the same point. And with all fiat currency, their value is essentially zero. Um, but I think that nowadays, with better tracking of how much money is out there, with better knowledge and better theory of how these systems can work, I would say that this just takes out the debt aspect. So I think that it's, in a way, a better version of the debt-based monetary system. But let's get to those are two quite boring ones. So let's get to a fun one. You're probably thinking, "Oh la la, what is this?" And when I was looking at, what could be used as currencies, I found some mad lad mentioning blowy tokens or blowy vouchers, like you get a voucher, I owe you a blowy kind of thing. And I thought, you know what, let's just add it to the list. And at least the money is based on something real, I guess is the thing going for this. You can prevent inflation as well, because like £1,000, we could get to a point where £1,000 for a loaf of bread, but no one's gonna give 1,000 blowies for a loaf of bread. So I guess we're protected from inflation in a way. I think people will end up hoarding these because you're not gonna. It's gonna be like an arms race, right? You don't want your step bro to have more blowy tokens than you, otherwise you're gonna owe him a blowy. So uh, another downside, I guess, there's no examples of this working in history. Um, it's probably morally wrong as well. Also, it would be weird. Like, who would want to give their kids pocket money? Because you'd be handing them over a token saying, "I owe you a blowy." So, you know, probably put it in C. Um, could put it in C. Or I could. How do you make a new category? I could make a category, add a row below, bam, a category between B and C, and we can call it BJ. There we go. I think that looks about right. Um, what else do we have here? Okay, let's get to the obvious ones. Let's do gold and silver. I would say out of all of the currencies here, a gold-backed currency is the most tried and tested throughout history. Um, it usually doesn't fail, but it usually ends up failing because it morphs into something else. Like a country will move off of the gold standard because their finances aren't in check, or they will start cheating their way, like in the Roman Empire with. Well, I guess it was silver, but the same happened in the Byzantine Empire with gold, where they just start, faking their currency and chipping bits away and making it lighter, etc. So it's not usually that the system fails, but it's usually that people, when their economies get to the point where they can't support their spending, they start trying to fake their way around it, which I guess nowadays, perhaps with better technology and tracking, will be easier to stop that stuff. But at the end of the day, what's stopping a nation from just doing a Nixon and just saying we're no longer going to back our currency by gold? But it does prevent overspending. It prevents these quote unquote consumer economies. Um, it can't be inflated and deflated, which is a pro, but it's also a con as well, because there are going to be at times where you want to stimulate the economy. But I guess you could do some kind of like Keynesian approach where you kind of save up for a rainy day. Um, it's a geopolitical nightmare though, which is one thing I would say, because suddenly these a small amount of countries who have crazy gold production are just going to be so powerful, and then everyone else not so much. Or it could be the other way, where everyone's just invading a country like Venezuela or South Africa because they have, or Burkina Faso because they have a lot of gold. So I think that it would cause a lot of geopolitical issues. Um, but yeah, it stops a lot of the financial fuckery. It's something real. and it works, and we know it works, and it's pretty much always worked. And the only time it doesn't work is when someone backs off of the system, and it looks like this is the debt-based monetary system we're in now is failing, and it's going to fail. And it looks like China is trying to peg their currency to gold, and they've done a lot. They've taken a lot of steps to do that. So it looks like this is a system we're going to move into, and I'm going to probably put it at high A. Um, Silver, pretty much the same as everything I said, but um, it's looser because there's more silver out there. There's more silver which can be mined. I also don't like it as much as well because silver can and is used in a lot of really important tech. Um, and so it could push up inflation for like electronics and EVs and stuff that silver is used for, because now it's also going to be used as a currency. So I think it's just a worse version of gold-backed currency. So I put it in B. Um, Again, like basing it off of something real, we'll go to this one, which is a land-based currency, a land-backed currency. So currency is backed by plots of land. So if you want to um, uh, suddenly chip in all of your money, you can chip it in for land. Again, geopolitical nightmare. I'm sure it's going to cause wars. It gives an incentive for nations to increase their borders. It gives an incentive to do weird stuff like creating islands and all of this stuff. Um, Also, like not all land is created equally. So if someone's chipping in money, how do you decide which bit of land is worth? Like I don't know, it just seems like a weird concept to me. Perhaps if we had like a Georgist approach, um, where there was value given to each bit of land, I mean, it could work there maybe. But I think that also it would disrupt land ownership and development as well. Like, who would want to develop land if that land is being used as collateral for currency or debt? Just in case like you need to use that, right, you need to give that land away. So I can imagine it would disrupt land development. um, Good thing, I guess, it can't be inflated and deflated at will, willy-nilly. But with essentially, like, who would it give the control to, right? It's going to give the control to landlords, or like landlord in the old sense of the word, people who own land. So we'd be going back to a weird kind of feudalist fiefdom system. So I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Probably D actually. What's interesting? RuneScape Gold. Let's do RuneScape Gold. I did RuneScape Gold just because it's the most common one, but I guess this could be any kind of game currency. We do have examples of people doing this, like not official examples, but during poor times in poor places like Venezuela. I think we have people who are grinding uh, RuneScape gold and trading it amongst themselves in the real world, and using that because their own currencies are doing like 1,000,000% inflation. Um, I mean, the good thing is, I guess it's like a safety net for people, because if you lose your job or you don't have anything to do, you can just you can always get enough to live because you can just grind this gold, I guess. But I think that's also an issue as well, because you're going to have a negative correlation with employment. When times are hard and everyone's unemployed, that's going to cause inflation because everyone's going to be grinding RuneScape gold. And then vice versa, when times are good and everyone has a job, it's going to cause deflation because who's going to be there getting this currency? So I think that's a big problem. There's no government control, which some people will be like, hey, that's great, but I mean that in a bad way. Also, it's a waste of time to generate it. Like, you're gonna have to have people generating this currency so that it can be used out there, and that's gonna just be using up time and money. when they could be generating something else, doing something more productive. Like, I don't know, giving blowies. Like, this is just a worse version of the blowy tokens, right? You're also giving power to like someone who's developed a game. Like, it just seems a very weird place to put power, and it could be extremely volatile. They could be a bot which is created or a glitch or so. Yeah, this is terrible. Just like I said, worst version of the blowy currency. What do we have left here? Let's do this one. Let's do labor tokens or labor power. So this is like deep socialist theory, right? One of the socialist um, theories is the labor theory of value. So what the labor theory of value is that the value of every item is determined by how much labor needs to go into creating that item. So, for example, if it takes 100 hours to pick 1,000 apples, and then it also takes 100 hours to make the fuel to run the tractor that does whatever in the field, and then another 800 hours to make the tractor and the machinery. So, like in total, let's say it takes 1,000 hours to do everything needed to create 1,000 apples, then that means that the labor theory of value for one apple is one, right? And then if I had a job as a masseuse, someone who gives massage, someone who gives blowies, like if I had that job and I worked 1 hour, then I could use my 1 hour token that I earn and I could go buy an apple, right? And this is very theoretical, and you're probably thinking this is crazy. Um, Kind of was what was behind the calculations and how and the money system for the Soviet Union. Um, they had all of these people calculating, how much time goes into creating this and this, and that's how they used to set the price of things. So in a weird way, that's kind of a system they used, and it kind of works. But it's so much work to figure out how much every like the value of everything, the labor value of everything is. And I, by the way, I identify as a socialist. I do believe in the labor theory of value, but I don't think it's a good way to run your currency. Also, like not all labor is created equal. Okay, 1 hour of picking apples is an hour of labor, but is it worth the same amount of as someone spending an hour blowing, right? Like, yeah, and this is one of the issues that they ran into in the Soviet Union. Like, one person working a job in Moscow was equivalent to one person working a job in the middle of nowhere, right? So, um, yeah, it causes a lot of issues. It's very rigid. The my biggest issue with it, as someone who believes in a lot of socialist theory, is the fact that in socialism we're told the value of something isn't the price of something, right? Okay, it might take you an hour to create an apple, but then if there's a famine and everyone's starving, that apple's worth like the price of that value is the price of that apple is a lot higher than its value. So yeah, I mean, we have some historical context for this being used. It's a good way to prevent exploitation as well, because you have some kind of awareness of how much you're being paid versus what you're producing. Um, I guess perhaps it would mean people are more responsible with their money. I'm not sure. But I guess it's good as well because the supply of money should also grow with the supply of goods, right? Because if suddenly there's a million more labor hour tokens, that means that a million people or a million hours worth of labor has been done. So there should be more goods as well on the market for those tokens to chase. So it should actually like automatically balance out the supply and demand of the money. Um, I I think that in the future it could be a way to go, like when technology and tracking and all of this is better. But for now, I'm going to put it in C. Okay, this was meant to be a quick video, so I'm going to try and be a little bit quicker here. Sorry, guys. Bitcoin. I put Bitcoin as an example, but any kind of a cryptocurrency with a fixed amount, where there's only a fixed amount of currency, you can't inflate or deflate it. Um, I guess its power is its strength in a way. Yeah, it's more rigid. It can't be inflated and deflated, but that can't be weaponized. But who decides the initial allocation? Like, especially if it's going to be a global system, who decides who gets how many Bitcoin to begin with? Um, you don't have that ever expanding paradox, which is nice, that you have with a debt based system. Um, I guess it has been used unofficially and officially as well, I guess, like El Salvador, and it seemed to work well. I know it was alongside another currency, but it seemed to work all right. I just, yeah, I think something more regional would need to work, and something that perhaps has a way to grow but at a fixed rate. Again, I'm not a Bitcoin expert, so apologies if I got any of that wrong. But I'm gonna put it there. Carbon credits. This is each country gets a set amount of carbon credits, and that's used for their monetary system. Um, so you have your money, and then it's backed up by how much carbon you can emit. Um, that was the idea with this one, not to be confused with the carbon credits where people get money based on how much. Like at the moment, I believe there is a carbon credit system, maybe. I don't know too much about it, um, but I think it's where companies get a set, I mean, countries get a set amount of carbon they're allowed to emit, and if they go under, they get paid, and if they go over, they have to pay. But I guess the suggestion was using that as the monetary system, which I think is a terrible idea because it should be deflating, because we should be emitting less and less carbon, right? In 10 years' time, you'd hope that the amount of carbon credits out there is a lot less. So using this as the global system, which I saw someone discussing as if it would kind of save the world, I feel like if people haven't, people will use them, right? But also, what stops people lying about how much carbon they're using? Like, it seems like a very corruptible system, and the currency would lose value during a depression as well, right? Because during a depression, there's going to be less activity, so it's going to be worth less. You have a currency that's automatically going to lose value during a depression, which doesn't sound like a good thing. But also, what about when people can't afford it? Like, what's included as well, right? If I can't afford, if I've run out of carbon credits and I have a cat who's breathing, like, do I have to kill my cat? Um, yeah. There's no experience of people using it as a currency as well. Like, it isn't tried and tested. Um, I think, and I guess the idea behind it is it would encourage a green transition, but at the same time, it's also going to encourage deindustrialization as well. And I think the argument right now is this is why a lot of Europe and UK has deindustrialized, which it isn't, by the way, but a lot of people are saying that it's because of this whole green transition thing. But anyway, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Mm, I do like the encouragement for green transition now, but at what cost? I also like, I guess, the fact that like it's like the debt-based system. The incentive is us for us to always be growing and always be consuming, whereas with this, it would be the opposite. So yeah, yeah. Okay, currency based backed by energy. So you could use your currency to get energy, which kind of what the petrodollar system was, I guess, to in its infant form. So I guess there's some examples of it working in a way, but I guess the currency is tethered in reality that way. Uh, I guess uh, it encourages the development of energy as well. Like people would be encouraged to have cheap energy, to create as much energy as they can and to create as much cheap energy as they can because that's going to increase the money supply. It should also inflate with development as well. The more developed you get, the more energy you're starting to create, the more money you're creating. And energy is king at the end of the day. I said it previously. Like if you track how wealthy someone is historically, like across 2,000 years, it's always in line with how much energy they're consuming. If you track how developed a country is, it's always in line with how much energy. So it's very, very tethered to reality. Um, and I guess Y equals MC squared. So everything is money, everything is energy anyway. So money is already energy. But now jokes aside, I like it. It does increase the incentive for people to like create energy or utilize all forms of energy at no cost. So like to the environment. I kind of want to put it in A, but it's not tried and tested at all. And but I think that like at the end of the day, energy. I think this is a better version of labor value, theory of value, and having like labor vouchers or whatever. Because energy is production, energy, especially now with AI, like energy is everything. But at the same time, it's kind of untested, and it is quite gimmicky in a way. Yeah, put it in B. Last one, I kind of put regional currencies, which isn't really a type of monetary system, but it's essentially like in addition to having your national currency, also having regional money or regional currencies, which is actually has and is being done. Like it has been done historically when there were kind of city states, um, but it's also currently being done in. I believe they did it recently in uh, in Korea, where in addition to the Korean currency, they would give people within this particular city money which can only be redeemed in that city, which is quite nice. And I think that especially in this day and age where local businesses can't compete, where money's just being sucked out of local communities and going into um, multinational corporations and governments, I think this is really nice because it creates an incentive for wealth to stay or come back to a community. Um, I think that it naturally creates competition and protection as well for these local businesses. Um, it obviously would need to be accompanied by a bigger or a wider currency, but it can also be exchanged that way through. It can also be controlled that way through exchange as well. So, like if there's too much of this regional currency, you could take some out of the system by putting it um, into the national currency. I like it. I like it. It gives a it's agile as well because it's a regional. Somewhere here. I don't know. Let's somewhere. Let's say here. That's it. That's the video. A bit random, but it's just good to start thinking about what are some of the other ways that the world could work, right? Because we think that this right here is the be all and end all and the only way the world can work, but actually like it's mainly been used for the last 100 years, right? Before that, like out of all of these, this here and this here is the most used, have been the most used systems. Um, so there are other ways that the world could work. So it's good to think about those as well. Just because the world is how it is now doesn't mean that it always has to be, and it always has been. So hopefully, fun video. Um, and I do have some more geopolitical, uh, China related videos, which hopefully will come out soon.